So good morning, everyone. Again, Sam, and this is EA300B. Gather that this is our third class, right? We've been meeting for the past 2 weeks, our third. So what is it that we're doing? We're doing Children's Literature B, very interesting and engaging course. Hopeful that you have kind of felt this way. We've been discussing lots of issues and we've been engaged in so many conversations about what children's literature is, what picture books stand for, and we started to even delve deep into the intricacies of um, um, children's classic like the Tale of Peter Rabbit. So how do you find the experience so far? Been doing this. This is our third week. So are you enjoying the journey? Or are you focused on the destination? And the destination would mean that you're trying to earn as many marks as you possibly can. You're trying to enhance and augment your GPAs. So are you enjoying the ride? Or perhaps you have your eyes and mind and heart set on the result at the end?
Actually, doctor, both.
Okay, nice. But one thing leads to the other. Obviously, if you enjoy the experience, you'll be able to kind of write very creatively about it, and this is what earns you high marks eventually, right? Okay, so it's the Tale of Peter Rabbit. It's picture books, how we interpret them, how to analyze them. We have had a number of tools. One of them would be the coach of Mobius. Another would be thinking about literature written for children, about children in a multimodal way, the idea of multimodality. Um, not, of course, overlooking the intertextual hints that were given here and there in these kinds of books, right? This is what we've been engaged in. And what is perhaps interesting, and this is perhaps what I'm introducing for the first time, every semester we have something new, and you guys are lucky because every time we finish class, I have it AI generated into a podcast, a very conversational, nice encounter between two people, and they talk about what we did in class, and they highlight whatever is worth highlighting. They sum up the whole idea. So, what do you think of the experience of listening to those AI generated podcasts that I send you from time to time?
To be honest, doctor, I was shocked because it felt super realistic.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like the regular AI generated stuff you can tell, it's AI generated, but it felt as if it's actually two people talking to each other and the
Mm-hmm.
ideas that they're discussing as if we're in class discussing stuff together. Yeah,
Yeah,
I did not
but
finish it all, but it was really good.
some that this is inspired by what we actually do.
Yeah, I
What
noticed
you
that, yes.
yeah what you have heard. Yeah, you're partly a contributor to that. It doesn't give names because I don't start the class by, or perhaps I don't do it anymore. I mean, starting the class by mentioning my name, and this is the Arab Open University. Otherwise, you would have heard that, and perhaps you will hear it in future podcasts. This is you and me and everybody else, by the way. So what they do is that they take the conversation or the lecture and the class that we have, and they somehow process it in such a way so that it can be generated as a conversation. Again, it's uh, it's what we do in class, but you are revisiting it in a perhaps in a different way, and this is the beauty of it. And it's conversational, and people like to hear stuff. We're all used to listening to the radio from time to time, and we like the experience. But I'm hopeful that this would add value to our conversations. And I'm hopeful that that would be engaging enough so that you can start, going out of your ways and I wouldn't say study because I don't like I mean, you guys are mature, you're graduating, so it's not about studying as much as it is about engaging with the material. So I'm not going to use the word studying anymore because that would be very childish. And you're, mashallah, graduating this semester. What I'm trying to say is that we have another source, a very interesting one, which is the podcast that we generate through AI. So what is it that we left? I don't recall that we have left anything when it comes to the tale of Peter Rabbit. We spoke about so many things. We started off by talking about, by furnishing the background, spoke about the history of children's literature, and a part of it would be picture books. And then we started to talk about picture books themselves, and we unpacked the term, and we spoke about the inseparability now between the word and the picture, and how important and how instrumental a picture would prove in our understanding of a text, right? And then we went all the way to the tale of Peter Rabbit, and we started to engage with the tale. We started to engage even with the character of Peter, and the different interpretations that we would think of. I mean, given our background, remember, in order for you to kind of make an assessment of a character or of a situation, you have to have, um, knowledge, and obviously knowledge wouldn't be enough. You need to have cultural knowledge. You need to know about, the cultural intricacies involved. For example, you would think of Peter against the background of Victorian ideas and ideologies. You would think of how his mom acts and reacts against his background, and whether she's different, she is kind of a byproduct of her age. So cultural knowledge is very important, and cultural literacy. And this is perhaps what people are sometimes missing, the idea of context. They try to read or examine a work, whether this work is literary or artistic, in isolation, divorcing it from and of its background, its cultural background, and the different socioeconomic forces that brought about this kind of work. So we're not doing this, alhamdulillah. What we're doing is that we're reading and knowing as much as we can about the background, whether it is cultural or artistic or whatever. And then we try to kind of apply, or perhaps see the work of art or the literary work against this background. This has been happening with the other courses and with the other novels and plays and everything in between, and we're doing it with the picture books, and we're likely to do it with the novels that we have ahead. So cultural knowledge is very important. Again, people would ask, okay, so we're mature, we're adults, so we can kind of read, we can try to understand and appreciate the culture, the background. How about children? Children can sometimes hardly read or write. So, would you expect them to have existing knowledge? Would you expect them to have cultural knowledge? And to answer this question, actually, it's a tricky question. And people are obviously divided over um, what is proper when it comes to answering it. They simply believe that a child, when you deal with a child, then you give him, kind of a piece of work to read. He kind of internalizes this piece of work, he keeps it, and then you give him another, and you give him a third. So the sheer exposure to these different works allow him or her to build his own database, to build his own codes and his own symbols, so that when you give him a new piece of work and you ask him to kind of read it and interpret it and understand it, he gets the messages that you may want him or her to get. So it's about, having this perhaps in, this is also another interpretation. Perhaps a child uh, has an inborn literacy, something that he is not responsible for. He or she is born with this kind of literacy in him, so that when you introduce him or her to a piece of work, he feels at ease with it, no matter how difficult the issues are and how um, you know how mature they are. Again, there will come a time and a situation where, of course, the issues would be over the head of a child. And obviously, this is not what we're talking about. We're talking about medium range kinds of topics and themes that you may find difficult for the child to decipher and understand. Again, do we want him to understand? Is understanding and interpretation our is our goal or aim when you are addressing a child? Again, you have people who believe, no, this is obviously not our aim. Our aim is to entertain. We're trying to entertain a child. And this is obviously was the primary aim and goal of Beatrice Potter at the beginning. Remember when she sent this collection of, drawings to the child of her friend. So she didn't mean to instruct him. She didn't mean to get him to understand certain messages and certain codes. No, that was a mere, um, you know, sign of courtesy. She was yeah, courteous enough to and grateful enough to remember this lady, her friend, or her. And somebody says that she was her governess, and she sent her or her child this kind. So she didn't uh, intend for them to be instructional. So it was mere fun that she wanted and she was targeting. And that also would bring us to the idea of um pictures in picture books, because people are also polarized over this idea, and parents are even polarized. Some of them would believe that that can be distracting. If I want my son to even, or daughter for that matter, to eventually become a good reader, there shouldn't be pictures because they distract them. They take them away from their focus, and their focus is obviously verbal fluency. You want them to be verbally fluent. You want them to understand the word, the sentence, the paragraph, the whole book, the text. And some other people and some other parents would say, no, no, they help. They set their imagination free. They train them in how to imagine things. They kind of widen their horizons. They give them the inspiration that they need so that they can even emulate and copy those kinds of images, and they go from there and start their own, um, um, you know, painting and drawing adventures if they have the talent. So as you can see, whenever you talk about picture books and their potential, you're not likely to finish or stop. The more you are into it, the more ideas, the more thoughts, the more projection of ideologies and thinking patterns and everything in between. Okay, so let's go back to the tale of Peter Rabbit, and obviously this is going to be our last talking about it before we move to Voices in the Park. Again, you need to remember that this is a, it is true that it was kind of produced at the turn of the century, but it still is a Victorian piece of work that reflects Victorian values. And Victorian values are all about obedience, are all about doing the bidding. If you're a child, you do the bidding of your own parents. If they say right, you go right. If they say left, you go left. There was no room for you having your own independent opinion or view of things. So this is one of the values that is deep-seated and rooted in Victorian society, and this is actually one of the values that we may agree or disagree on whether it is being challenged in the picture book that we call The Tale of Peter Rabbit. So our starting point and point of departure would always be Victorian values and how those Victorian values are upheld or challenged in The Tale of Peter Rabbit. Um, and you would apply this, and when you talk about this, you would talk about gender roles and whether um, um, gender roles are, you know, kept and observed, or perhaps they are challenged too. You would talk about the character of the mother. You would talk about the character of Peter with whom we have this sense of we feel this contradiction. We were trying to see in him embodiment of Victorian values, which of course he is not, and at the same time, you would look at him as also embodying uh, the values of children's literature that has at their core the idea of having a rebellious boy. So you have rebellion in the genre as one of its basic principles, but you have obedience, uh, um, obedience and conformity in the values of society. So how to reconcile the two and how not to lose sight of this kind of contradiction would be the big question that we are all the time grappling with. So on the level of the genre, children's literature, we have Peter, or the character of Peter, conforming to the the principles of the genre and being a boy who embarks on an adventure, a rescue one, some sort of initiation, and then he emerges victorious at the end. Again, learning new things, gaining new insights. So in this sense, he is conforming to the genre, but on another level, he is not upholding the values of Victorian society, at the core of which you have this idea of obedience, blind obedience to authority, whether this is parental or divine or societal authority. So the idea of reconciling the two is obviously very difficult. So what did we say about the tale of Peter Rabbit? We spoke about it in terms of genre and how, again, how conformist, how and how dissenting it is. And obviously, we have established the fact that for the most part, generically, it is conforming to the norms of the genre. But on a societal level, it's not. Or perhaps it does conform in certain aspects, but it also does deviate in other aspects. Um, I don't want to monopolize the talk like I always do. I would like you to come to the mic and share with me what takeaways you had from last time we spoke. We've been talking about the tale of Peter Rabbit for three running mm, sessions now. We have done it. We have done two in the regular classes and one in the master class. So, what some takeaways when we talk about the tale of Peter Rabbit? Whether we're talking about the age, whether we're talking about the genre or the characters themselves. Yeah, come to the mic and share. Well, alhamdulillah, we're 21, which we're 20, and this is obviously a big number. Come to the mic. Tell us whatever you know about the tale of Peter Rabbit. Whatever you think clicked with you, whether you like the picture book or not. Mm, mm.
Well, hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Wissam. Hi, how are you?
I just wanted to say that I really enjoy the insightful lecture at the beginning of our class today.
You mean you
And
enjoy the tale of Peter Rabbit? Mm. Yeah,
and
good.
and yours as well. Your insightful
Thank you.
comments.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Sam. Thank you. Um, yeah, that was very nice of Wissam. Um, what more can we talk about when it comes to the tale of Peter Rabbit? Did we say that it can be, in one of the interpretations, it can be a cautionary tale uh, with the implications of cautionary tales? Of course, you know what a cautionary tale is. A cautionary tale is um, a tale or a story that is meant to give a lesson, but it gives it in the hard way. It puts the characters in in compromising situations. They suffer, and their suffering is in and of itself a message that we send to the readers or to the audience, as we're trying to tell them not to do this again, because doing this is bad, and this is the proof is in the pudding. You see uh, what happened to the characters. This is, and if you still remember, for example, Othello, for example, you remember what happened to Othello and Desdemona. They died tragically at the end, right? And we say in one of our interpretations of Othello, the play, is that it is a cautionary tale. It is as if Shakespeare is trying to tell people never get married to somebody from the other races. If you're white, you keep to within your ranks. You, if you want to get married, fine, get married to a white individual. If you're black, it's the same thing. Marry from within your ranks. So it was a cautionary tale because of what happened to Othello and Desdemona. So along the same lines, you would think of the tale of Peter Rabbit as a cautionary tale. I'm asking you now, uh, what is it that perhaps Beatrice Potter is trying to warn us against? Remember that we said that she is ambivalent. We sense this feeling of ambivalence towards her uh, attitudes in the picture book. We don't really know. We don't really know whether she is uh, for what Peter did, the idea that he disobeyed his mom and went to the farm, and or whether she was encouraging people to do like that. You don't really know what her thoughts are on that. Okay, so let's assume that she was against what Peter did. She was against that, and she was given the picture book as a cautionary tale. She's trying to warn people against something. So, what do you think she was warning us against? Assuming that she has a stand and the stand is clear. Joyce, go ahead.
Yes, doctor. If she's actually warning us about something, she wants to warn children about the consequences of disobedience. Like
Mm.
we know that Peter ignored his mom's warnings and not to go to the garden and watch out and don't go wander somewhere
What?
away.
Yeah, which would make it, which would make this classic just another classic or another picture book, right?
Definitely,
Because
yes.
this is the pattern that gets repeated in all the picture books and all the children's literature that you may have that you may read or encounter, right?
Definitely, yes.
So again, it's good that we're saying that she's ambivalent. We don't really know what her thoughts are, whether she is entertaining purely, or whether she is giving or she has an instructional agenda, like we say, she's trying to teach something. Again, because calling calling the tale of Peter Rabbit a cautionary tale would mean that it doesn't have the value that we hope she had. It has when we talk about it in archetypal terms. When we talk about Peter as another revolutionary guy who is disobedient, not because he likes disobedience, but because he wants to rectify things. He wants to make right whatever he thinks is wrong about the world. And one of them would be the idea that nature shouldn't be infringed on. Nature shouldn't be invaded by humans, for example. He doesn't believe that what he did was wrong because in the final analysis, this is nature, and obviously somebody came over and he claimed this land and said this is mine, and he started to do stuff. And when I reclaim my right, you people would say, no, this is not yours anymore. See? So if you think about it in those archetypal ways, it would give meaning, or perhaps a more profound meaning to the whole thing. But if you kind of settle for the easy interpretation that the chamomile tea was some kind of punishment because everybody else was eating nice food, his other sister, that would be a very simplistic interpretation of the whole Beatrice Potter's project, if she has one. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? So I wouldn't go for the idea that it's a cautionary tale. Yeah, if we say that it's a cautionary tale, we obviously shut the discussion down uh, very early and very easily and too soon. But if you think about the picture book in a more archetypal manner, you would think of Peter standing in a long line of rebels, people who would say no. And obviously, people who say no in the world are not too many. These are dissenting figures. These are obviously nonconformists, people who are not so happy about the status quo. They don't kind of appease and please. No, they have um, a different viewpoint about the world and how it should work. So I would like you to think of Peter along these revolutionary lines. He's a rebel, a young rebel like no other, and he is obviously saying no, and or at least challenging and questioning. So questioning is not bad at all. Why? If mom says don't go there, I wouldn't blindly obey. I have to say, why not? And if she says that your father got killed and he was made into a pie there, I would say, why? And if she kind of skips the question and tries to do something else, I would go and perhaps inquire myself. So it's inquiry that he was perhaps doing. He wanted to know why his father, why he would have to be deprived of the love and the care of his father at a very young age, right? So think about it along these lines. And again, what is helping here is the fact that you have pictures that gives you those subtleties. You would have those drawings reflecting those different moods that Peter goes through. Remember, at the beginning, he was upright. He was full of energy, but over time and out of those kinds of um, chases that he had to be part of, he started to perhaps lose his breath. And you look at the pictures and I mean the drawings, and you feel that they reflect those different stages. Uh, Again, some people would say, yeah, we're subscribing to the idea that it's mere curiosity that the guy was engaged in as a child. And obviously, if if he had to do it again, he wouldn't do it because of the suffering and the tribulations that he went through. And I wouldn't say this is a wrong interpretation because, again, even if you are very strong and tough, there comes or there come moments in your struggle when you feel frustrated, when you feel fearful and scared. There is obviously nothing wrong about you as a hero being scared, being frustrated, being portrayed as weak, because weakness is part of the human condition. I mean, you can't be all the time tough. There comes time when we see through your vulnerability as a human being, because we're all vulnerable, no matter how strong we project to others that we are. Um, so this is one of the things that the tale of Peter Rabbit is projecting, the idea that it can be read in different ways, and it can be interpreted in different ways too. It depends on your perspective. It depends on what you bring to the conversation in terms of even your background, even your character can add to the interpretation. So obviously the interpretation is up for grabs. Um, it depends on your character and uh, um, what kind of person you are. So if you're perhaps conservative, traditional in your thoughts and mindset, you would subscribe to the idea that what Peter is doing is obviously wrong and he is disobeying authority, and there are rules and norms in society that should be followed, and obviously he's not doing that. But if you have a rebellious streak to your character, if you are one of those who don't say yes and I agree easily, so you would think about it in different terms. You would subscribe to the fact that perhaps Peter is trying to make a statement. Don't go there. I would ask why. And if I don't receive a satisfactory answer, I go there and check for myself. So obviously, his only problem is that he wanted to check for himself. Why wouldn't I go there? Why wouldn't I ask and investigate why my father had to die or had to be made into a pie? And why is this guy, Mr. McGruger, is saying that this is my land and this is yours and it's out of bounds. I shouldn't be there. Why? It's outside nature. Who came first? We as animals or he as a human being? And then we talk about this idea of sovereignty and who is sovereign over what, who is entitled to what, and those big issues. I'll start the Voices in the Park and the discussion of and about the Tale of Peter Rabbit is not will not end. Obviously, will have more discussions, and this is coming when we still have the master class day on Thursday, where we're likely to expand on the ideas of the Tale of Peter Rabbit. And then we do Voices in the Park, and we start those comparisons between the two. So Voices in the Park, who read Voices in the Park? Okay, so Joyce did. Who else? Wissam did. That's nice. That's interesting. And Noor, inshallah. Okay, طيب. Yeah, nice. Okay, طيب. Again, because it's a picture book, and picture books, like we said, are not like full-fledged novels. They don't take as much time. And actually, I shouldn't be saying this because not taking as much time would mean for some people that they are not as deep or as are not as profound, which is not true. They are as profound and they are as deep. But what I'm trying to say is that if you start reading them, you're not likely to leave them because of the totality of experience and the unity of purpose that you're trying to fathom and understand and explore. So you're not likely to have a picture book, to start a picture book and then you stop in the middle and say, I'm not going to, perhaps next time or tomorrow, or because it's again in terms of pages, the number of pages, you may finish it and then think about it and reflect on it later. And this is something that or an opportunity that long novels wouldn't afford you because they take time. You cannot finish a full novel, a novel of 200 or 400 pages in one single sitting or in in one go. You divide the effort over perhaps a week or more or less. So this is perhaps why I'm saying that picture books are more accessible and um, perhaps easier to finish. So having said all of that, I still don't mean that they are simple or simplistic. So what I'm going to do now, because obviously the majority of population didn't read, uh, I'll have you read it here again. I'm going to flip through the different pages. I'll give you the time that you need so that we can finish it in perhaps 10 minutes. So I'll share my screen, and we're going to read the Voices in the Park together. Let me find source. This is in Park. So I sent it to your uh, did you get it in the WhatsApp group? Mm.
Yes, doctor.
Okay. So I would like you to read it on your own. I think we're all part of the WhatsApp group, right? So go to the WhatsApp group and open it and start reading it. And those who don't have access to the group, I'm going to share the picture book here. Let me first of all close all of this and open the picture book. Okay, I'm sharing the picture book now if you don't have access to the group. And I'm going to read along, okay? And I'm going to flip through the different pages. Can you see that?
Yes, doctor.
Okay.
Yes, doctor.
Okay. So again, it's one of two things. You're either following with me here, reading with me, or you have the text on the WhatsApp group. You can open it and start reading it on your own now. Yeah, this is the end of it. So what do you make of this picture book? I'll give you a minute to think. If you have a pen or a pencil hand, you can scribble down what you think, whatever comes to your mind. They don't have to be organized. They don't have to be whatever. I would like you to just commit your 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 thoughts to paper if you have a pen or a pencil hand. You take a minute, think, uh, perhaps establish connections, and perhaps set this picture book against the one that we did earlier, The Tale of Peter Rabbit, and come up with ideas. Because we're exploring, we're not judging, we're not taxing, okay? And I always insist on people reading the primary source before they go to the secondary source. Okay, so secondary sources would be critical material that talk about and discuss the primary source. So this is simply because I don't want to spoil it for you. I would like you to have independent opinions and views. I don't want to be you to be affected by what other people are saying before you read the work for yourself. And this is a habit that I would like you to develop, the idea of before having people talk to you about something, you investigate the thing yourself. You do your own research yourself. You read, if it's a novel, don't go to the reviews first. No, read the novel first and come up with your own assessment of the whole experience, and then go to the reviews later. Okay, so what we're doing now is that we're reflecting on what we have read, and hopefully you'll come up with ideas. You're going to establish logical connections and everything. So I can see Wissam and Joyce raising their hands. We're going to wait for the minute to uh, um, come to an end, and then we'll start collecting impressions about the whole thing. Okay, if you're ready, yeah, let's go ahead. Yalla, Wissam?
Yes, doctor.
Yes.
I noticed in this story that there is no dialogues; it only monologues about their feelings and inner thoughts.
Yeah. Okay. You
Um,
mean their feelings and impressions about each other?
yes,
Okay.
and also the author offer multiple perspectives for four
Okay.
characters. He shifts between them and also change the forms of each character,
Okay.
which
Nice.
I think is reflecting the character.
Yeah, that's true. So are they talking about different things?
No, mostly about their experience in the park.
Yeah. So it's the park that we're having. I mean, the only place that we have is the park, right?
Yeah,
They all come from home and they went to the park, and this is where they met. Did they plan to meet? Are they friends?
no, it was spontaneously.
Yeah, it was by accident, right?
Exactly, yes.
So, and it was obviously a good accident for some and a bad one for others, right?
Exactly, yes.
Nice,
It was
very
for the
nice.
children, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Did you depend heavily on the text, or you also looked at the pictures?
Actually, half and half.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice. Okay. Thank you, Wissam. Thank you so much. Joyce, you were raising your hand.
Yes, doctor. I noticed also from where they got the title, like Voices in the Park, because we have four voices
Mm-hmm.
for the mom, the son, and the father, and his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I also noticed how the pictures changed according to the characters. Like when the mom was angry and she's shouting, calling for her child, the trees were like moving as if because of her shouting. Also, the way the
You
park.
mean, are you implying that even the trees were afraid of her, scared of her?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
She has
Mm-hmm.
her controlling character. And you
Mm-hmm.
can tell there's difference in the social status between the first family and the second family. And also change in the, like, there's a difference also in the character. Like the boy is not acting like a regular boy.
Mm-hmm.
And the girl is more like outgoing, outspoken, and stuff like that more. Like this is usually it's the way around, where the
Mm-hmm.
girl is normally shy and
Mm-hmm.
controlled by the parent, while
Mm-hmm.
the boy is like free to
Mm-hmm.
do whatever he wants or
Yeah, you
express whatever
mean
he wants.
this is what you're trying, that we have a reversal of gender roles?
Yes, definitely, yes.
And okay, nice. Okay. Okay. Do we know when this was written?
I think in from the book, no, but I think it was in the late like 20th century, like
Okay,
1980
yeah.
something, I guess.
And I'm asking you for two reasons, and I'm asking you because I wanted you to always remember that a piece of information like when something was published is very, very important because it sets the context. Remember, we said that there are that the cultural knowledge is very important. It informs the whole experience and it gives us insights, right? So this is one thing that we need to know when something was published and written, and also I'm also trying to stress the importance of paratextual clues and paratextual information. Paratextual means you don't only focus on when the novel or the story started. You don't start with once upon a time, for example, if it's a fairy tale. No, you start way earlier from the cover page, from the back cover at the end. And information now, information like when something was published and where it was published, and of course, by whom it was published, can make all the difference in our interpretation. Obviously, I did my own research, and I think we will realize that this was written in perhaps in the 50s or a little later, and knowing that can make all the difference because we're going to realize that this is not a modern piece of work like the Tale of Peter Rabbit. It's a postmodern piece of work. So when it's a postmodern piece of work, a lot of ideas pop up, like the idea of intertextuality, like the idea of not having a stable, monolithic one person kind of narrative, where we have narrative in the first place. We have a story to share and tell and retell. So if we don't have any of that, and we know that this is a postmodern piece of work, we know yes, because it's a postmodern piece of work. So again, I'm stressing the importance of reading the work even before you read it. And what do I mean by that? I mean that you need to engage with the paratextual information that we normally have before the text starts. Again, biographical information, even sometimes you have a testimonial that is given in the cover page or perhaps in the back cover telling us how great this piece of work is and how it was a bestseller if it was one and once. So knowing those small pieces of information can make all the difference, obviously. Noor, go ahead.
Yes, Nagda, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
I noticed it focuses the idea diversity in the society and respecting differences. The mine, the daughter.
I'm not sure, Yanur, I got what you meant.
Again?
Yeah, can you come again? Can you say what you
Okay.
said again? Yeah.
I noticed the focuses in the idea
Mhm.
of diversity
Diversity. Yes.
in the society and respecting differences.
Yeah, we agree on
The
that there
mine,
that there
the
is
daughter.
diversity and you have different characters who
Yeah,
belong to different age groups. You have different social status. Obviously, you have the poor and the rich. You have males and females. Yeah, absolutely. We have diversity in everything. But whether this diversity is honored and respected, this is perhaps what we are going to engage in. Yeah, Noor, what you're saying is correct. Thank you so much.
welcome.
Yeah, again, it's um, a very important piece of work. If the tail of Peter Rabbit was or belonged to the late Victorian age, and in that case, it projected the values and the ideas of the Victorian age. The Voices in the Park is a postmodern piece of work that would also reflect and project the values of the postmodern. Again, in terms of techniques and methods, we have this idea of twisted narratives. We have this idea of destabilization, the fact that you destabilize and challenge everything. You challenge meta narratives, you challenge genres, and you turn genres on their head, like we're seeing here. We're revisiting issues and we're looking at them with fresh eyes, having diverse perspectives. I mean, the idea of reversing lots of what people have taken for so long as established. So we're seeing all of that, and that can be clear from a very small and a very tiny piece of a paratextual information, like when something was published, when something was written. This is again very important. What else do you have you noticed now that you have read this picture book? Noor, can I ask you to drop your hand, please? Yeah, Munira, come to the mic. Yes.
Yes, good morning, doctor.
A very good morning to you. Munira, before you say anything, are you the one who sent me a recording of the master class?
Yes, doctor.
Yeah, I would like to thank you so much, because if you didn't record it, or if you haven't recorded, we wouldn't have had it. And I was so sad, because it's efforts that shouldn't go like this. But thank you so much for doing the recording and for sending it to me. Thank you so much.
You are welcome, doctor.
Yeah. Yeah,
The
go
first
ahead. Yeah.
things
Yeah.
the first things I noticed about the character for the father, he's very sad, looking for a job, just
Mhm.
like trying keeping hope, and also the name for them son, Mud,
Mhm.
I think. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's kind of
Smudge, the
Mud.
girl. Yeah.
Uh,
This is a daughter, not a son. His daughter's name is Smudge. Yes.
yeah, it's kind of funny name. I don't know why. Not
Yeah, I mean,
usual
you think
to
you
hear.
share the sentiment, because this is what I think Charles said about the name. He said that this is a funny name, but this is perhaps another story. This is what he exactly said, right?
Yes.
So funny in what sense? Did you check it up?
No, not yet. But the sound of it, like that, I
Okay,
did.
yeah, this is a very interesting exercise. Can we go and perhaps Google the word smudge? Write smudge and then write meaning and see what will come up. Perhaps it has a meaning in the English language. Can we do that now? Yeah, we can. Yalla, I'll give you a minute to do that. Go to Google and Google the word smudge. Write smudge and write meaning or definition.
It came for me called لطخة.
Excuse me?
لطخة. called لطخة.
Labkha? No,
لطخة.
I need a synonym in English.
Oh,
Perhaps we wouldn't understand it in Arabic.
Spot or muddy or dirty or just a mark or a dot.
Yeah, see, yeah, it's all negative, right? And this is perhaps
yes.
the reason why Charles laughed when he heard the name, right? Yeah, okay. But compare the name to the actions of the girl. So obviously they don't meet. They don't
Yes.
correspond. She is very wet, and the name is bad, but the character
The
who,
character for her,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, she's
Is
different, right?
opening funny, no?
Yeah, yeah, excellent. Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. Okay, Munira,
And the
what,
character
yeah,
for the mother also, she's
uh,
very selfless. She's
yeah,
taking care of her dog much more than the
yeah.
daughter.
Uh, I mean, she has a son. Charles is her son, or Charlie. Is it Charles or Charlie?
Charles, Charles,
Okay.
Charles.
Okay, you're saying that she's taking care
Care of her, of the
of
dog
the
more
dog.
than her son.
Yeah, she cares more for the dog than for the son. Um, yeah, I didn't notice that, but still, perhaps you have a point there. Yes. Okay. Can we have somebody else reflecting on the picture book, Voices in the
Yes,
Park? Yes.
Munira is actually right.
Mm,
The mother was observing her dog and she didn't notice when her boy was gone with
mm.
the smudge.
Yeah. Where does this lead us? So again, let's assume that we all agree that she cares more for the dog than the son. Where does this leave us? What does this add to her character?
Does not?
She said,
Hmm. What? Okay. Any other insights? Okay. Um, so now that we have read it, and this was very important for me, like I said, I don't want people to read the secondary source or sources before the primary source. And this is what we did. We read the primary source. Again, now we can shift gears and move to the secondary sources. And you're going to find out that we don't have many secondary sources, at least the ones that we have. But of course, you can dig deep and you can find as many secondary sources as you possibly can. Uh, um, but one thing is sure, which is that we're dealing with a postmodern piece of work. And when I say a postmodern piece of work, it means that we're talking about a set of characteristics that would characterize the postmodern era and its different products, and that we are going to apply to this picture book. So we need to know what postmodernism means and what it stands for. We need to know its features and elements, and then we need to take those elements and try to look for them in Voices in the Park. Suffice it to say, for example, that when you look at the narrative and when you look for narrative as a matter of fact, you don't find any narrative. it's not the typical kind of narrative that we're used to, even in another picture book, voice, The Tale of Peter Rabbit. If you compare what you did with Voices in the Park to the other novels, obviously the experience is different. With other novels or other books that have narrative to them, you would have one single narrator, right? You normally have one single narrator, first person or third person, right? And you have one monolithic narrative. We're moving from a point in time in the past, for example, to the present, to the future, or even if we are in the present and we have flashbacks to the past, and then we go back to the present and see, we don't have that in Voices in the Park. So you don't have one single narrator, you have four different narrators. And normally with in normal and in typical novels, you would have narrators who are for the most part mature, reliable, and everything. And sometimes you have unreliable narrators, but they are not, they are very few and far between. But here you have two of the narrators are unreliable because they are children. Normally, if you have children, if you have, I mean, this is the typical view, and I'm not inventing that, or I don't have any biases against children. So, but this is what we were trained to see and observe. The fact that if you have a child narrator, you normally take whatever he or she says with a grain of salt. You need to scrutinize what he or she says. So, in Voices in the Park, because it's a postmodern piece of work where the script is always flipped on a lot of what we take for granted and what we take as established and as a given. We have two unreliable narrators. We have two children, and they're giving us the narrative from their own perspective. Again, this is one of the things uh, that is typical and that is characteristics of the postmodern experience. Again, the idea of gender roles and whether those gender roles are typical and thus upheld, or perhaps they are not typical. And what we have seen is that they are not typical, where, for example, you have Smudge, the girl, who is more, as like Joyce said, she's more, she's very assertive. She has an independent voice. She has this power of judgment. She can see through the other characters. She could tell right from the very start that the mother is domineering, that the mother is in control, that the mother is not, I mean, the kind of mother that you feel comfortable with and being around with. So these are the assessments of a child, and again, you wouldn't expect a child uh, um, to say this, and you wouldn't expect a female child to also say this. So we have reversal rules in terms of age groups and also in terms of gender roles. You would expect Charlie or Charles to be more assertive, the boy, and obviously uh, uh, he's not an initiator. Smudge starts everything. She takes the initiative and he follows suit, or he follows her lead. This is obviously, I wouldn't say revolutionary, but because there is obviously nothing revolutionary about a girl saying what she's not expected to say, and a boy not saying what he is expected to say. And but I'm saying revolutionary in the treatment. We're not used to this. Our eyes are not used to those sights and scenes and situations and everything in between. So as you can see, Voices in the Park is a very nice piece of work. You're going to enjoy it. And when we have finished talking about it in and out, we're going to make those comparisons between it and the Tale of Peter Rabbit. I'm going to even ask you to kind of tell me which of them is your favorite. But this is perhaps too soon. We'll have to have finished everything about Voices in the Park to be in a position to judge. I have a very interesting AI generated video on Voices in the Park, and it is on my channel. And I'm going to share it on on the WhatsApp group now before I forget. So give me a minute, and I would like you to watch the video, and you're going to also like it because it talks now. Yeah, I would like you to consider it a second resource because we have already read Voices in the Park. Wait. On second thoughts, I would like to do something interesting because we're finishing after all. I would like us to kind of watch it together. How about that? Do you agree that we go and have it played and watch it together? Raise your hand. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, wait. Okay, so are we ready? Yeah, should. Can you see that?
Yes, doctor.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes,
Yes.
doctor.
Yes, doctor.
Can you hear that?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
good. Wait. Yeah, let's start. Yalla. Bismillah.
Voices in the Park is a very well-written picture book for both children and young adults. Anthony Brown's book was published in 1999 and has been a top seller since. The book allows us to see life through each of the characters in the story. This book belongs to the contemporary realistic fiction genre. This genre is defined by a vivid realistic setting, multi-dimensional credible characters, and believable problems that are understood by the intended age group. Voices in the Park satisfies these criteria. This is a plausible story that could happen in today's world. An upper-class mother and son could walk their dog to the park and meet other people who may not be of the same socio-economic status as they are. There are other parts of the story that fit into this mold. This is a realistic occurrence that can happen daily, with easily understood problems for the reader. The characters in the story make it easy for children to relate to through use of language and how they interact with each other. Brown attempts to further the reader's ability to relate to the characters by portraying them as gorillas. How?
If the characters had been depicted as human, readers might refuse to relate to the characters due to preconceived bias about race, socioeconomic class, and/or the gender of the characters.
Reading with such prejudice could certainly limit the reader's ability and/or willingness to make personal connections to the experiences of characters.
When a reader is able to visualize the characters as animals, which lack certain human elements of socioeconomic status and gender roles, they will more likely relate to them. The animal depictions also force readers to focus on other artistic elements that imply socioeconomic status and gender roles.
The depiction of the mother implies wealth and stereotypical attitudes of wealthy women.
The depiction of the father implies poverty and attitudes of poor men.
The children seem to transcend gender stereotypes, as the boy takes on more of a female gender role. He is reluctant to play with the girl and less outgoing.
The girl wants to play with the boy and is much more outgoing. She seems to convince the boy to play, which is not very characteristic of girls in most stories.
Textual elements. The text itself reads as 4 separate stories, each with its own voice. At the end, Anthony Brown blends the voices to create one semi-ambiguous ending, letting the reader fill in the holes. The pictures do the same thing, relying on the reader to come up with the actual relevance. Text and font choices play a crucial role in Voices in the Park by Anthony Brown. Each font style is carefully selected to reflect the distinct voices of the characters. For Charles's mother, a font like Times New Roman is used. Its tall letters with elegant tails at the top and bottom convey a sense of formality and cultural refinement. Smudge's father, on the other hand, is represented through a less formal, bolded font with rounded letters, suggesting his working-class background and deep, rough voice. Charles's font is thin and barely visible, symbolizing his weak and fearful demeanor, especially in comparison to his mother's authoritative tone. Smudge's font is playful and bold, mirroring her energetic and hearty personality. Each choice of font by Brown is a deliberate attempt to give readers a glimpse into the characters' attitudes and voices. In Voices in the Park, each character's perspective is isolated, allowing readers to understand how they perceive each other and the events unfolding around them.
Upon seeing Smudge's father, I found him quite frightful. His dog, Albert, a mere mongrel, and Smudge, a very rough-looking child. They certainly seemed beneath us, possibly due to their less refined appearance.
My daughter Smudge always cheers me up, and I just wish I had as much energy as that dog, Albert. Right now, I'm just focused on finding a job.
Albert seemed like a friendly dog to me. I didn't really notice Smudge's father, but Smudge was amazing at the playground. She was funny and great at the slide and monkey bars. I hope she's there next time I go to the park.
Dad seemed really fed up today, so I suggested we go to the park. Charles's dog, Victoria, was nice, and his mum, well, she was a silly twit. Charlie was a bit wimpy at first, but turned out to be quite friendly. We had a good time, though I noticed he was sad when his mum found him.
Through these varied viewpoints, Brown explores the characters' inner worlds and their interactions. Charles begins sad and transforms into a happier state, only to become sad again under his mother's influence. Smudge's father remains preoccupied with his job search, while Charles's mother is more concerned with appearances than her son's happiness. Smudge, observant and empathetic, notices the emotional undercurrents affecting everyone. Voices in the Park employs various artistic styles to enhance the storytelling. Impressionistic art is notably used to depict the passage of time and the changing seasons that align with each character's narrative. In Charles's mother's segments, the Impressionistic technique captures the essence of fall with dabs of brown, yellow, orange and red, representing the changing colors of the leaves. This mimics how our eyes perceive and merge colors. On page 18, the playful scene of the dogs, Victoria and Albert, is set against a backdrop of spring with vibrant pinks, reds, greens, whites and blues, symbolizing the blooming flowers. Just 2 pages later, the same spring colors frame Smudge and Charles climbing a tree. However, as Charles is led away from Smudge, the scenery shifts dramatically to a pre-winter atmosphere. with sagging branches and dark muted colours of green, black and brown, reflecting the shift in Charles's emotional state from joy back to sadness. Illustration placement on the page. For the mother, the illustrations are surrounded by clear, straight edges and corners for the border. In Smudge's father illustrations, it starts out with him sitting on the couch, showing three-dimensionality when including the shadow behind him. The next page is a full bleed illustration that has no borders, only for the end of the page, catching your attention and adding visual information to the text. The third page into his voice, it shows him taking the leash off an excited Albert. In this illustration, the head of the dog is outside of the border of that page. This could mean that the dog is not held to the distinct boundaries there are in society. Throughout his voice, there are no distinctly drawn borders. Charles's illustrations vary from being bordered, then progressing to freestyle dimensionality, and then into full-page bleeds. The lined borders are placed around the scenes where he is either in close proximity or restricted by his mother's ideals. His perception of the world is bound to how and what his mother teaches him to see. When he meets Smudge, his placement of the illustration changes. He is shown in a freestanding picture of him and her playing together on the monkey bars. Then the picture changes to a wavy border without lines restricting him. It then evolves into a full-page bleed as he is headed back home with his mother and Victoria. In Smudge's illustrations, the pictures are either placed in the middle of the page without borders or are of a full-page bleed. Line, shape, texture, colour and design. Throughout the illustrations in this book, the illustrator used lines in ways to represent action and emotion, such as the case of Smudge's perception of Charles's mother. However, another way Brown used the concept of the line was to explain divisions in relationships and class distinctions. The first picture in Charles's voice shows the dog and him are separated by the division of the rooms. By showing the dog, most commonly believed to be man's best friend, off in another room, distant to the boy, shows a division in their relationship. There is also a picture of Charles and his mother sitting on a park bench within the first voice's illustrations. Both of them are separated by an invisible line that is drawn between them and are facing opposite directions. This resembles the division in their relationship also. What are more interesting to note is the implications of the division of class in these illustrations. In the illustrations for the first voice, there is one frame where it shows Smudge's father in worn clothes, reading a newspaper while sitting on a park bench. Behind him is a dog waste disposal and garbage littered on the ground. Then there is a lamppost that divides the frame between him and Charles's mother. She is standing there, dressed in more expensive and fancier clothes with all of her jewellery on. Notice behind her there is no garbage at all. The grass all around her is nice and clean. This illustration shows the social class divide, comparing the surroundings of someone that is of lower class and upper class drawn together in a public park. That lamppost serves as a device to show a comparison between the two next to each other. The line of the lamppost works again in showing the divide between the perceptions of the world from the point of view of Charles and Smudge in an illustration placed in the third voice. By placing the line between characters resembles some type of separations in this book, whether it is in relation to relationships or social class status. Postmodern picture books are often non-linear, with a number of apparently unconnected plots. For example, in Voices in the Park, there are 4 distinct voices, each describing their own version of the same walk in the park, and the whole story does not come together until the reader has read all 4 voices. The notion of intertextuality refers to all kinds of links between 2 or more texts, irony, parody, literacy, and extra-literary allusions, direct quotations or indirect references to previous texts, fracturing of well-known patterns, and so on. Intertextuality is prevalent in Voices in the Park. There are a number of art references in Voices in the Park. These references include the Mona Lisa, Halsey's laughing cavalier, Munch's scream, and perhaps the most obvious, Brown's repeated references to Magritte with his hat motif. Other intertextual references include the appearance of Mary Poppins and King Kong. Whilst readers, adult or child, would not necessarily understand or even notice all such references in a picture book, they would be likely to notice some. As Beckett points out, readers who are unable to decode the parody at more sophisticated levels or to identify the target painting or sculpture will at least recognise the intent to parody and can still appreciate the humorous and playful treatment of pre-existing artworks. Beckett goes on to explore the reasons for these parodies, saying, "Whatever their reasons for parodying artworks, illustrators offer enlightened adult mediators a wonderful opportunity to introduce children to the original works to which they refer." I agree with Beckett on this matter, and believe that is one of the fundamental reasons why the postmodern picture book is able to capture both the adult and the child reader's interest. Visual intratextual references appear throughout the 4 chapters and suggest upcoming events in the story. The first of these references occurs on the second page of the first voice. The mouth of the scruffy mongrel on the right-hand side of the illustration, and the tips of Charles's shoes on the left. Later in the same chapter, the edge of smudge can be seen in the illustration of Charles and his mother sitting on the bench, and on the following page we see a man in old clothing sitting on the bench reading his newspaper. These references all allude to the stories of other characters whom the reader has not yet met. However, it is not until a reader has read all 4 chapters that they would realise the significance of these allusions. Postmodern picture books have had, and continue to have, a significant impact on the process of reading. Children are encouraged to reflect on what they are reading, how the text and images interact with each other. They are given opportunities to notice intertextual references and inspired to involve themselves in the stories they are reading. Postmodern picture books appeal to the current generation of cyberkids because readers are encouraged to interact with the story in a similar way to computer gaming, while the opportunities for intertextuality and parody in postmodern picture books provide another level for adults to enjoy. In the words of Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, good children's literature appeals not only to the child in the adult, but to the adult in the child. The characteristics of postmodern books are many and typically diverse. Postmodern picture books offer more than a reading experience. They add an experience in narrative construction. Children can create many, sometimes nuanced, meanings from the interplay of words, images, sidebars, balloons and the like, much like the hypertext on a computer or television channel surfing. The consequential narratives may be infinitely constructed and indeed different each time the book is read. Postmodern picture books, as noted, are busy. Children must actively engage in them on several levels. Postmodern picture books often contain a socio-cultural or political concern. The postmodern agendas of the other, the feminist, or the multicultural are common themes. Postmodern picture books have distinct features. The story is often non-linear. The books may contain irony or ambiguity, or are sarcastic and cynical. They play with traditional formats. Surrealistic images or completely unrelated images are used. The format of the book itself may be expanded in size, shape, construction, and the books may be read backwards, upside down, or even back and forth, offering a hypertext experience to the reading. Finally, they promote and indulge the reader as the privileged creator of the narrative. Postmodern picture books have a special place in our worlds, equally as children, as adolescents, and as adults. They shift the ground upon which we walk, requiring us to re-evaluate truth and reality as offered in something as basic as a children's storybook. Rather than providing order, these books show the quixotic nature of the world. Then they reassure the reader that this uncertainty can be overcome and that the world is a wondrous and surprising place. This is a well-written book because it depicts economic status and race in a way in which it can be discussed by anyone. The story starts out with the mother's point of view and ends with the little girl's. I believe that the author began with the mother because in society the rich is first and the poor is last. This would be a good representation of classification and how money can determine your order in life. When the father starts to talk as he walks through the park, there are signs of gloom and unhappiness. The Mona Lisa portrait is crying, showing the sorrow of the family. There is trash everywhere to illustrate how no one cares. And there is also a man begging for spare change, which is something most seen in areas of lower economic stature. However, when he is walking home from the park, the homeless man is up dancing, and the pictures come to life, illustrating the happiness that his daughter had brought him. I believe that Brown is trying to send the message that money does not bring happiness. Though the father and daughter were not as well off as the mother and son, they still were able to be joyful. I appreciate the fact that Brown used gorillas in the story so that race would not be obvious. However, the gorilla's shade of colour is different. The older gorillas are darker than the younger ones, and even though the lower class father face is dark like the upper class mother, his hands and arms appear to be that of a Caucasian man. This is a great story because it is one that can be used in not just an English class, but in all subjects of learning. I like the fact that Brown is not sending just one certain message to young readers, but everyone can relate to this book in some form, because with each voice in the book comes a different personality. This is truly a remarkable book for its many elements of literature.
Wait. Yeah. Hello, we're back. So how did you find the experience? A little bit long, right? Can you hear me?
So long, Doctor.
Long and boring or what? Lots of ideas, right?
Very informative, Doctor.
Yeah. I think if you revisit it on your own, inshallah, when you
Thoroughly
are,
detailed.
excuse me?
Thoroughly detailed.
Yes, yes. I think we'll end on this note and with this item, and I'll see you, inshallah, in the master class, and we'll have
Thank you,
opportunities
Doctor.
to talk more, inshallah, about voices in the park. يلا نشوفكم على خير. السلام عليكم. Bye bye.
Thank you, Doctor.